there, my lovelies, and welcome to my booktube channel, The Sassy Library Fox. My name is V, and today we're going to talk about the books I read in 2023. And to be even more precise, we're going to talk about the books that weren't my cup of tea or that were slightly disappointing, okay, to be honest and to be fair, and not to sugarcoat things. One of them, or actually two of them, were pretty disappointing, but yeah, we will get to that. I will talk about those books. I chose 5 books that weren't quite what I expected them to be, or that didn't live up to my expectations. So I'm going to talk about those 5 books. And I also plan to make a video about my favorite books of 2023. So stay tuned for that. This one will be up soon as well. Or, well, as soon as I manage to record a video for it. Which might take a little while because Christmas holidays are around the corner. Anyway, let's do this. Let's talk about the 5 books that didn't quite, well, live up to my expectations. Let's say it that way. Disappointment has such a negative ring to it. Okay, I got my coffee at the ready. I got my cheat sheets once again. And let's do this. Let's talk about the 5 books I read in 2023 that weren't, yeah, my cup of tea. Okay, so the first book I read in 2023 and that didn't quite make it into my top list was The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. I hope I didn't butcher that name. And as for what the story is about, it's basically about a girl named Roya and a boy named Bahman, and Roya and Bahman meet at a stationery shop in Tehran and they fall in love and want to get engaged, or actually they get engaged and want to get married. And unfortunately this happens while there is a revolution in their land, so they set a day where they would meet to get married, but they never make it there. And a couple of weeks later, Roya gets a letter from Bahman that the wedding is off. And yeah, their lives develop in different directions, and we have some sort of time jumps that are in the past and in the present. And yeah, I think what didn't work for me with this book were actually the time jumps. They were quite jarring. One time we're in the future, but then we're back in the year 1953, I think. So that was kind of jarring. Sometimes we even skip a few decades even more into the past to the parents of Roya and Bahman, and it was odd. That didn't really work for me. Also, I don't know, I'm not really the kind of person that reads historical fiction. I mean, I love historical fiction, but the problem I always have with historical fiction is that it never really touches me on an emotional level. It's usually written in a style that kind of makes me feel disconnected to the characters. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it is the way it is. I usually can't really feel with the characters or relate to them that much. And I noticed that with a lot of historical fiction books lately, that they just don't work for me like that. And when I read a book, I want to feel something. So I think that's one of the main problems I had with this book. Roya's and Bahman's story was really tragic, but it didn't evoke as many feelings in me as I wanted it to. And yeah, as I said, the time jumps were a little bit jarring. I don't know if I wrote anything else on here. Oh yeah, Another thing that really didn't work and that caused me to rate this 3 paws was the fact that I had the feeling the author didn't know in which kind of direction she wanted to go. Because on the one hand, we have a lot of politics at the beginning of the book, but in the end it's turning into a love story. So that was kind of confusing for the reader as well, because either it's politics or it's a love story, or you combine everything from the beginning. But to start off totally political and with a political message, but then to turn into a complete love story, I don't know, it didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me that way. I know plenty of people who loved this book and who really enjoyed it, and that's fair and okay, but for me personally it didn't work that well. And my phone is once again ringing. I don't know why my phone is always ringing while I record videos, but I'm gonna make the cut here and I'll continue with the second book soon, so please stay tuned. Okay, I'm back again from my phone call. It was my future company. In case I didn't tell you, I found a new job and I'm so looking forward to starting it. But enough of that, we had enough interruptions. So I just come to the second book I read and that didn't quite live up to my expectations, and it was Death Note Volume 5. I think it's called Whiteout or something like this. And as for why it didn't work for me, I think I gave it 3 paws, and that's mostly due to the fact that so far the author, Tsugumi Ohba, managed to surprise me and managed to keep the suspense during the first 4 volumes. The first 4 volumes were very suspenseful. It was really such a nice cat and mouse game between L and Light, and it was just interesting to find out about those two and how they tried to, well, find out who the other is and to find out the identity. But of course this couldn't go on forever, and in volume 5 there is a break, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything, so if you haven't read volume 1 to 4 or volume 5 of Death Note yet, please ignore this. But if you have, I think the change with the company or the financial company that got the Death Note kind of took a lot of suspense from the story. The Death Note isn't in Light's hands anymore, which was kind of foreseeable. I mean, it was logical that sooner or later their cat and mouse game would get boring and that there would have to be a change. But the pacing got really slow, and I don't know, I think there could have been another solution than to give it to a company, especially a financial company. But yeah, it was the author's choice and I gotta respect that, and hopefully volume 6 will be better. 3 paws it got, and yeah, hopefully the next volume will get me back into the story. Okay, the third book I read was Kiss and Tell by Adib Khorram, and I was looking forward to that so much, but then in the end gave it 3 paws, and that for various reasons. Let me take a sip of my coffee before I talk about this. There were various reasons why I gave it 3 paws. One of them was that I kind of expected a romance between a band member and the band that's kind of playing before they have their show, their support band, you might say. So I liked Hunter as a character, and I just didn't like his love interest. Kaven didn't work for me. He was such a red flag, and I don't know, I neither shipped Hunter with Aiden, his ex-boyfriend, nor with Kavan, his new love interest. But I don't know, I already read Adib Khorram, Star is the Great is Not Okay, and I loved how the topics were tackled in there. Adib Khorram addressed a lot of topics and issues during that book, and I kind of expected that something like that would happen with Kiss and Tell as well, just on the side of a band and the struggles and the things an uprising teen star has to face. But there were a lot of things that were addressed, but it was superficial, it wasn't in-depth. I never got a real, I don't know, it was never really addressed directly. There were so many topics and issues that were mentioned, but we never got to the core of it. It was never resolved. A lot of things just hung in the air, and yeah, it just didn't work for me, and it wasn't as fluffy and nice as I expected it to be due to those serious topics. But then again, those serious topics weren't really worked through, so that really just didn't work for me. So I gave that 3 paws, and yes, this one was a disappointment because I think I had too high expectations for that one. I went into it expecting a very cute MM romance between a boy band member and a musician, but then it ended up to be something totally different than I signed up to. So yeah, I'm pretty certain there are some people that love this book and that really enjoyed it, but for me it just didn't work out. Maybe I had too high expectations, I don't know. It was just too superficial for me. I wanted more. I wanted to get into the gritty details, which didn't happen, and therefore 3 paws it was. Okay. Another book, book number 4, I'm going to mention in this video, and that's probably going to be a surprise to everyone who just recently subscribed to my channel, but it's The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. And yeah, that book, it's a classic. I know it's a classic. I know a lot of people love it dearly, and that's totally valid and okay. It just didn't work for me. Mainly because I think I don't have to go into the plot of the Three Musketeers because everyone knows what the Three Musketeers are about, right? But I don't know, it was I'm really ringing for words here. As a kid, you watch all those The Three Musketeer movies, and they are so honorable, and they have their values, and they have their convictions, and they are noble men. And then you read the book, and all you take from the book is that they get into a lot of unnecessary fights, they drink, they sleep with married women, and they don't take a lot of things seriously. I mean, they basically, whenever they made money, they gambled it away and were poor again. So I'm used, as a person that watched all those Three Musketeer movies, I'm used to them being very clever and organized and honorable people. And then you read the book and it's totally the opposite of everything you watch in the movies. So that was quite jarring for me as a reader, and that kind of, I don't know, kind of destroyed the illusion of the perfect Three Musketeers. Yeah, I think I will go with that explanation. And also, my lady was the best character in the entire book, Leggett, the best character. She was cunning, she was clever, she was beautiful, she pulled the strings from behind, but she was still limited through being a woman, and the ending she got, despite all her cleverness and everything she did, she just couldn't live up to her full potential, which was really tragic and sad. So I don't know, I think it was interestingly handled, her character, because she's the most interesting and intriguing character in the entire book, because she's conniving, she's cunning, she knows what she's doing, she is extremely one of the people that plans ahead and always knows what to do, and she's manipulative AF, but she's also portrayed as being completely naive and doing stupid things, and that just didn't work for me. It was weird that such a clever woman would do so many stupid things. So yeah, I had a couple of issues with the book. Maybe I'm just too 21st century, I don't know, maybe it's that, but yeah, it didn't really live up to my expectations. I wouldn't say it was a disappointment. It had its merits. There were parts of the book I really enjoyed, but yeah, I kind of had to rectify my picture, my idolized picture of the Three Musketeers after reading the book. Okay, never mind. Let's head to the last and the fifth book. That one really disappointed me. I can't see it any different. I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people gave it 5 paws, or well, 5 stars actually, because usually people rate with stars. But it definitely wasn't for me, and it was The Silent Patient by Michaelides. I hope I pronounced it right now. As for why it didn't work for me, I think we all know the story of The Silent Patient. Alicia Berenson is an uprising artist. She is well known in the artistic world, and her husband is also a name. And one day she shoots him. Close range. I think 5 shots directly into the head, and the police finds her standing next to her husband's corpse. And no one knows what happened, what caused her to kill her own husband, because they apparently were a really loving couple. They were in love. No one knew about them quarreling or anything. And then this happened, and Alicia doesn't talk about it. So 6 years forward, Theo Faber, a psychotherapist, decides that he's the one who can help and cure Alicia, and he's the one who will find out what happened that night. Yeah. Okay, so there were a lot of things to unpack here, but I don't know, I had a lot of issues with the book. 1, it wasn't realistic. 2, it was a little bit misogynistic. At least in my subjective opinion, it was. I can only speak for myself here, but I got some sort of vibes because all the psychotherapists were male and all the patients were female, and in reality it's actually the other way around. A lot of psychotherapists are actually female. 80% of psychotherapists are female. So the only female psychotherapist that worked at that psychiatric ward was a woman named Indira, and she was some sort of hippie caricature, if you wanted to say it like that. So yeah, I had some issues, and the frequently used slurs to describe women, or the patients even, yeah, there was a lot going on underneath the surface. And just, I think that all that aside, the biggest issue I had with the book was the fact that there were so many plot holes and that nothing made sense, or that a lot of things didn't make any sense. I mean, when everything is at the ending and things are resolved and we finally find out what happened that night. And it's just, there were so many plot holes and I couldn't look past that. And I honestly wondered if I was reading the same book everyone else was reading. Maybe it's, I think it's definitely a me thing, because I look carefully at things like that. If there is something and it needs to be explained, I look at it very carefully, and yeah, for me it didn't work. My scrutinizing gaze didn't like what it saw. So there's that. And yeah, the plot holes destroyed it for me, and the very unrealistic things that happened. And I mean, this might be a spoiler, so if you want to go fast forward until the end of the video, you're free to do so. But if not, you can stay here, and if you've read the book, even better. But for instance, I found it very unrealistic that Theo was hit by Alicia's cousin. And I mean, he just looked at the house and wanted to visit Alicia's cousin and her aunt, and he suddenly hit with a baseball bat. He goes down. He is bleeding. I think he had a real serious wound. I mean, if you are hit on the head and you're unconscious for a couple of moments and you're bleeding like crazy, you probably have a concussion and should go to the doctors. But what is Theo doing? No, he's not going to the doctors. I mean, first of all, Alicia's cousin explains that he thought he would be a burglar. And of course we all go around with baseball bats and just hit people with them when we think they're a burglar during the day, by daylight. And we all do that because that's the logical conclusion we come to when someone looks at our house. Sure, yeah. So that wasn't reasonable at all. And then Theo just goes in there and drinks with Alicia's cousin, asks her a couple of questions, and then goes back home as if nothing ever happened. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a burglar. I shouldn't have hit you on the head. I'm sorry you're having a concussion now. And Theo's like, oh no, no bother, don't bother, bro. Happens all the time. Like, seriously? And he's not going to the hospital. His wife doesn't notice. Are you kidding me? He goes to work the next day like nothing ever happened. I can't be the only one who found this very unrealistic and very illogical, right? Okay, spoiler ending. I could say so much about this book, but I will keep it like that and I won't add anything anymore. So yeah, I gave The Silent Patient 2 paws on Goodreads and 2.5 paws on my blog, but quite honestly I might just after everything I just said, I might just give it to 2 paws. Anyway, that book was totally not my cup of tea and it didn't work for me and I had a lot of issues, so yeah, 2.5 paws it is, and that's generous. Anyway, those were the 5 books that kind of disappointed me in 2023, or that didn't live up to my expectation, or that weren't exactly what I expected them to be. I still read them all. I finished reading them. I never DNF a book, even if it's bad. I just can't bring myself to do that because I always want to know how it ends. Yeah. I'm crazy like that, I know. I probably should start DNFing books, but I just can't bring myself to do so. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the 5 books I loved in the next video. So that will be the positive approach to last year. And I would love to hear which books you read in 2023 that totally didn't work for you, or that weren't your cup of tea, or that kind of drove you crazy. or that kind of drove you crazy while you read them. I always love to hear other people's issues, and I would love to hear what you think about the 5 books I just mentioned and spoke about. Did you read them and did you have the same issues I had? Or I don't know, maybe you have a completely different perspective and you can tell me what you liked about them. I would love to hear that. I'm always a positive person, so to hear something positive about books I didn't like all that much would be really helpful. Maybe I can see a silver lining. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please write them down in the comments below. And well, I guess we're already at the ending of my video and there's nothing left to say except of take care, stay healthy and safe, and see you around the next time. Bye! That he is solving the... Okay, my phone is ringing, I'm sorry.